The Lost Art of Stoic Silence, Rediscovering Power in a World of Noise. In today's world, the air is thick with chatter, endless conversations, notifications, opinions, and background noise. We live in a society where speaking up is often equated with strength, and silence is mistaken for weakness or disinterest. But what if silence, thoughtfully chosen, is just as powerful, perhaps even more so, than the loudest voice in the room? The ancient philosophy of Stoicism, founded by Zeno of Citium, offers a countercultural idea that silence is not the absence of strength, but the evidence of it. Stoicism teaches that control over oneself, especially one's words, is the path to wisdom, emotional resilience, and peace. As Zeno once said, better to trip with the feet than with the tongue. In other words, it's often wiser to fall in action than to fall in speech. Let us explore the depth and strength of silence through 9 moments where Stoic silence becomes not just appropriate, but life-changing. Sa by Sdad Adad. When being criticized unfairly, unfair criticism can feel like an attack on our identity. Yet, Stoicism teaches us that it's not the criticism itself that hurts, it's our interpretation of it. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher-emperor, reminded us, if something external afflicts you, it is not the thing itself but your judgment of it. And you have the power to revoke that judgment. In such moments, silence becomes a strategy. It allows you to listen, assess, and respond, not react. Instead of retaliating, you seek truth in the feedback, discard what's baseless, and maintain your composure. This kind of response preserves your integrity and often impresses more than defensive words ever could. Silence here is not submission, it's leadership. When surrounded by boasting, imagine you're at a party or a meeting, and someone dominates the room with self-praise. The instinct is to respond with your own achievements. But Stoicism advises restraint. Seneca would say, true happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future, not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears but to rest satisfied with what we have. Self-assurance. Stoic silence in such a moment signals self-assurance. No validation needed. You don't need validation from others. Quiet confidence. Your silence says, I know who I am. That quiet confidence often says more than a list of accomplishments ever could. When you're angry, anger clouds judgment. It tempts us into saying things we later regret. Epictetus advised, keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly. In a moment of anger, choosing silence is not repression, it's wisdom. By remaining quiet, you give yourself space to calm down and assess the situation clearly. You prevent unnecessary damage to relationships and reputation. As Marcus Aurelius asked, how much worse are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? In the face of false rumors and slander can provoke the desire to defend, deny, and argue. But silence can often be the most dignified reply. When someone falsely accuses you, remember, you control your actions, not other people's words. Truth emerges. A calm silence allows truth to emerge over time. Trust in character. It shows that you trust in your character rather than in counterattacks. Live your truth. Epictetus said, if someone speaks badly of you, live so that no one believes them. When coping with loss. After grief, the world becomes strangely quiet. It's tempting to fill the silence with distractions or explanations. But Stoic silence is about listening, to your pain, to your inner world, to the lessons loss brings. Seneca wrote, the day which we fear as our last is but the birthday of eternity. Grief can be transformed into growth when we use silence as a space for healing and reflection. Rather than resisting the pain, we allow it to shape us into wiser, more compassionate human beings. When dealing with ignorance, arguing with ignorance rarely leads to enlightenment. Stoics knew this well. Galileo, though not a Stoic himself, exemplified their mindset, facing house arrest rather than argue endlessly with those unwilling to see truth. Control your patience. Stoicism reminds us that you cannot control others' ignorance, but you can control your patience. Choose dignity. Silence in these moments isn't weakness. It's grace. Wisdom over war. It's choosing dignity over dominance, wisdom over war. During conflict or heated debate, Words said in the heat of conflict often escalate tension. Stoicism suggests choosing silence in these moments not to avoid the issue but to create space. Space for clarity. Space for reason. By saying nothing, we often allow the other party to reveal more about themselves. And when we do respond, it's with calm, composed clarity rather than reactive emotion. As the Stoics taught, respond, don't react. When practicing deep self-reflection, silence is a requirement for introspection. You cannot hear your thoughts if the world, and your own mind, is always making noise. Marcus Aurelius often retreated into inner silence to write his meditations, a private diary never meant for publication, yet one of the greatest works of Stoic thought. That kind of reflective silence helps us understand our desires, fears, and motives. It brings us closer to the truth of who we are. When words will not help. Sometimes, no words can fix what's broken, explain what's confusing, or express what's meaningful. In these moments, silence becomes sacred. A hand on the shoulder, a steady presence, a kind look. These can speak louder than platitudes. The Stoics would call this tacit wisdom, an understanding that transcends language.